is I'm very honored to have him and meet him for the first time today. Actually, Mr. Benedict Hernandez is chair of IBPAP, which is the association that handles the outsourcing and business process. Benedict has overall responsibility for the delivery of Accenture's BPO services from the Philippines to top clients worldwide. These include industry-specific BPO services, notably health administration, network services, utilities, and insurance, as well as cross-industry BPO services, such as finance and accounting, human resources, and customer contact services. On top of his Accenture role, Benedict continues to play industry leadership roles. He remains at the helm of the Contact Center Association of the Philippines, of which he is a founding member. He also serves on the board of the IT Business Processing Association of the Philippines as chairman of its executive committee. Benedict has also served as president and CEO of IBPAP. Through these industry engagements, Benedict helps lead multi-sector efforts to continue growing the country's IT and business process management economy by expanding the Philippine talent pool, maintaining a positive business environment, and fortifying the Philippines as a preferred offshore delivery location. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Benedict Hernandez.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to also greet our Honorable Undersecretary Gito Manalo, our Honorable Deputy Consul General Jaime Ramon Ascalon, our colleague in the industry, Dr. Penny Lauchanco, and one of the other speakers, Dr. Gerald Osmond. I'm also greeting everyone here in the room. I have this fortune of talking to you about our industry in more broad terms. I just need to tell you that I'm feeling a little bit of pressure. So far this morning, we've heard that the Filipino people are cheerful, they're happy, and they're warm, and I hope I don't disappoint you this morning. We came in, a lot of us last night, so we're a bit jet lagged. We'll try to be as happy and cheerful this morning for you. We belong in this wonderful industry. I think we've heard through the video and through the speech that we just heard that a big part of this story is really the Filipino knowledge professional, or the Filipino professionals. And one of the things that was highlighted that's actually causing a lot of growth and interest in the Philippines has actually been what was called the overseas Filipino workers remittances to the country, which in a few years will be about $25 billion, which is huge for the size of our economy. What's interesting, and you're gonna see it in a couple of slides later on, is that the industry that is about to hit that same number is the industry that we belong to, which includes the healthcare information management sector and many other things that we do. And when you think about those industries, the overseas Filipino workers, there's over 10 million of them right now that are working in various countries, different parts of the world, that are remitting all of that dollar amount to the Philippines. The other one that's generating all of that dollars are also Filipinos that are doing similar professional work, but this time doing it within the country, Philippines, so they don't have to leave. Earlier, there was a mention that there's almost 800,000 Filipinos as of last year that belong to what we call the IT, business process management sector. And I think I just wanted to clarify what that means because it sounds a little bit too complex when we say IT, BPM, which really means the information technology business process man. What is really all of that? And it's a little bit confusing because when I show you the chart of the kinds of work that we do in this particular sector, it's extremely diverse. So it's a little bit difficult to explain. In fact, in the introduction of the work that I do for Accenture, and I lead our business process management work in Accenture, which has over 30,000 employees today in the Philippines. The work is extremely diversified. You heard about healthcare information management. We do a lot of that from Accenture Philippines. You heard about finance and accounting, HR services, contact center services, network engineering services. So all of these professional knowledge-based work that we do from across hundreds of IT BPM companies in the country. And all of that is essentially the Filipino professional now has a choice whether to be a professional accountant or healthcare information professional doing it from other countries or doing it from the Philippines. And essentially in our industry, which we call IT BPM, the difference is we're doing it from the country. And it's really all this technology that's enabling us to be a finance specialist, an accountant, an HR practitioner, a healthcare practitioner for any client all over the world, because technology now allows us to do that. So I think that's the wonderful thing that our industry has brought to our country. It's given a choice for the Filipino, whether you want to seek global careers outside, or you can actually pursue the same global careers while staying in your home country called the Philippines. So that's been very exciting for us. I think the other tailwind that's been driving a lot of growth in our industry is essentially when you look at what all the analysts are saying, the world will continue to starve for knowledge professionals. And we see that everywhere, right? When you look at the work that's been done by Gartner in their annual report, and they say that the world is already short today of knowledge professionals and will continue to run short in the forecasted years. That's one important data point. When you look at the survey done by PricewaterhouseCoopers for their global CEO survey, wherein more than 2,000 CEOs worldwide respond, they say access to talent is one of the key strategic issues of many companies all over the world. And then really closer to here, you look at the recent article where this was earlier this year. I think Michael Porter wrote about what the US needs to focus on. And one of the key strategic imperatives, he said, was really the lack of talent, particularly born out of how academia continues to miss exactly what the requirements of companies and industries are, which is not just a US problem, it's a Philippine problem, it's a problem all over the world. So when you step back and look at what the world is running short of, it's running short of knowledge professionals and adequately trained professionals. And you look at why all of a sudden the Philippines, whether it's through overseas Filipino professionals or those who are staying in our industry, are actually growing our practice. It is because of the fact that we have a lot of young Filipinos. More than 500,000 of them graduate every year with a university degree. They can speak English, and they're very service committed, and they're happy to do work for these different types of jobs. So I think that's really our unique play. As the world starves for professional talent, the Philippines has a lot of it. And we've seen it in the first generation with overseas Filipino workers, but over the last 10 years, we've seen a magnitude of interest in the Philippines to do the same professional work through our IT business process management sector. So the way I see our business, we call it ITBPM, it's a fancy name, but it's really us being professionals for the rest of the world and technology allowing us to do that. I'll now shift over different slides, and this is a little bit of an eye chart, but these are some of the numbers that we've been tracking too, and this is work that's done by our different associations. As I mentioned earlier, as of last year, we were directly employing over 770,000 Filipinos. I mean, if you think about that number, that was practically almost nothing 10 years ago. So now we look at over the last 10 years, we've built so much momentum that we've gotten to this level now that last year we did about $13.4 billion worth of contribution to our economy. That is significant. And when you look at the next few years, by 2016, when we hit $25 billion, we're going to rival the overseas Filipino remittances to the country. You know, it's always been lauded as a big economic boost, and at that point would be about a 10% contribution to the national economy. So it's a huge, huge impact to us. Who's driving all of that? It's about 1,000 or so IT BPM companies. And I know when I say IT BPM, it kind of stays conceptual, but I'll show you some logos of who's out in the Philippines to give you a sense of what we do out of these different companies. As mentioned earlier, IT BPM is very broad. There are many things that we do. But in reality, what really got first a lot of attention from a Philippine standpoint is what you hear as voice or contact center work, right? In 2010, all the global analysts declared the Philippines has become #1 for contact center work, right? For a country that was never looked upon for these types of knowledge professional work, 2 years later becoming #1 in one of those fields, which is the contact center realm. And then you see the other things, there's all these acronyms. When I say back office or KPO, that includes the finance and accounting, the human resource management. and all the other back office work that we do out of Philippines for international clients. IT is part of that, health information management is part of that, ESO is engineering services, and CPO is creative processes, right? Animation, game development work done from the Philippines. Next slide. When you think about why the Philippines, very similar to what we've heard so far in the first two presentations, which is the number one reason why it's been an attractive growth destination has been the access to scalable educated talent. There's also cost advantages of the Philippines, the infrastructure that you saw earlier, the government support, and also a track record. When we look about the talent pool, these are more of the more current projections for this year. The numbers keep going up. By end of this year, we are expected to graduate over 500,000 people in those areas that were highlighted earlier. And when you look at the emerging services coming out of the country, it actually matches what kind of degrees they're going for. So when we mention IT, look at the number of IT and engineering graduates that we have, as mentioned earlier, over 100,000. When you think about healthcare information management, and our colleague, Dr. Lachanko, would actually speak more about that. There's also even more university graduates that are actually helping us grow that particular industry. Let's look at cost. And this is work done by one of the leading analysts in terms of looking at IT BPM work at Everest. And if you look at the all-in cost per person in the Philippines, and this is an example in the contact center area, the Philippines has and will continue to remain to be one of the most advantaged locations in terms of cost. This is an example for their analysis. This is done by Everest for the contact center voice work across different destinations in different parts of the world. If you look at the next one, this is an example for finance and accounting, all-in costs per employee. Again, very, very advantageous for the Philippines. And the last example is for IT, wherein it also compares very, very favorably. Typically number 2, right, worldwide in terms of your cost picture. Infrastructure has really just kept up over the years to support our growth. One of the main ones is really telecommunications with multiple undersea fiber optic cables that are connecting the Philippines to the rest of the world. There is the adequacy and the redundancy that all the global companies need to operate out of the Philippines. The next one is what's been key to us is really how government had supported our industry through incentives. And one of the key agencies has been in the same Department of Trade and Industry, under the Philippine Economic Zone Authority. They've been phenomenal in terms of supporting our industry. One of the things that they've been doing is actually creating what we call IT business process parks. And I'll just tell you a little bit so that it comes to life. The one on the upper left is Eastwood. Can you go back? Eastwood City. Eastwood, my old company, I used to work for one of the early call centers back in 2000. We were the first tenant in the very first building in this 14-hectare den development called Eastwood, which used to be, in the olden days, really just a factory area. So there was nothing there. There was us, and there was just an old rundown factory area. And that was in 2000. In about a year's time, there was a McDonald's that was set up, and we said civilization has arrived. And in a couple of more months, there was a Starbucks that was set up. From just one tenant in that one space of nothing, today there's about 55,000 people every day that live and work there, mostly in our sector. And you see that replicated across Metro Manila, and you're seeing that actually expanding in the provincial areas. So when you think about what we've been doing, when you say 800,000 people, we're actually creating these small cities across the entire country and creating support sector development, including retail. Condominiums are being set up, 7 by 24-hour shops are being set up, transportation is being given life. So there's a lot of just multiplier positive benefits to the rest of the economy because of our industry. Government support, DTI, phenomenal partner for us, and every other department has been in clear support. There's many things to highlight about how that's been key in growing our industry, but really the next slide is particularly our best asset is talent. So a big part of what we do with government is to actually work with them in making sure we amplify the talent supply for industry as the growth keeps coming. Despite the high scale we've achieved, we are still hitting close to 20% year-on-year growth, and that's a phenomenal number when you think about growing an 800,000 people industry by 20% every year. You gotta really invest in making sure you continue that supply. We've received a lot of support in terms of government scholarship for training specific to the skills on the job, which we do with the TESDA organization in the first logo on the left-hand side. And then about this year, we're rolling out a industry-created minor degree specialization in what we call service management. It's actually created by 40 IT BPM companies approved by our government, being financed to be rolled out in universities today. Again, getting the industry college graduates to be more attuned to what our industry requires. So just an example of the kind of collaboration work we're doing with government. The other thing that we're excited about is that it's interesting that at the beginning it was mostly Metro Manila benefiting from investments and jobs being created, and that's a very interesting thing because of the over 500,000 university graduates, only 25% of that actually graduate from Metro Manila. 75% of the rest of the college grads are outside of that city. What we've been doing as an industry with government is promoting the many other untapped cities. Now you look at the first one that matured is Cebu, and Cebu today has 90,000 of those IT BPM professionals. And you're seeing that replicated in different cities in the regions of Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, and our continuous push is to continue to develop all of these cities so we can actually achieve inclusiveness of growth in our particular industry. Last thing to just share with you is really the track record. We've had a fantastic run of growth, and we anticipate we will continue to be an attractive choice. Another eye chart, again, just giving you the diversity of work that we do in the first column, IT area, the diversity of work in what we call business process, which does include the healthcare information management work, and also the engineering type of work that we do out of the Philippines. So again, over 1,000 different companies are doing this type of work, either as service providers or as companies themselves doing it out of the Philippines. I told you some of the logos, and this is again just part of the industry slide, some of the notable logos that are operating at significant scale, and by significant scale I mean thousands and thousands of folks are doing different types of work for the likes of these companies in the financial services sector, in the insurance sector, and in different types of activities. The other one is what we call third party, which is companies that do the work for you rather than you doing for yourself. The top two ones are also out there, the top two in terms of employment. Convergys, which is the largest contact center in the world, now employs about 37,000 people in the Philippines. Accenture, the company I belong to, has over 30,000. And you have the rest of these logos, and they're not meant to be inclusive, that are actually employing thousands and thousands of people and are still growing their businesses out of the Philippines. So, essentially, just to quickly recap, these are the main reasons. They've all been very strong over high growth years, and we continue to work as an industry group with government to make sure we maintain this formula of success of supporting our growth. And then our last slide before I turn you over to our next speaker is really just back to, as we keep on working in those, we are very confident we're going to continue this trajectory of high growth. That's our job, which is to protect that growth so that in about 2-3 more years, 2016, will actually rival $25 billion of overseas Filipinos remittances. Thank you very much.